You just feel this way. A quiet hum beneath everything you do. That sense of being a spectator in your own life, of preferring the corners to the center, of feeling a profound exhaustion after simply being around people. And tonight, in this quiet space, we're going to expose the root of it, not as a flaw or a curse, but as a story written for you a long, long time ago, a story we are about to rewrite together. Because the truth is, the blueprint for your quiet world was drafted in the noise of your childhood. And this is the deep, often unspoken truth of how your parents made you an introvert. Psychology Fix begins not with changing who you are, but with understanding why you are this way, a journey into the very fabric of your being. Close your eyes for just a second, not to sleep but to truly see, to remember. Picture the dinner table, the living room, the car rides. What was the sound? Was it silence? Was it criticism? Was it expectation so heavy it felt like gravity itself pulling you inward? Because your nervous system, that brilliant ancient instrument, was learning its primary melody in that environment. It was learning what felt safe and what felt dangerous. And for so many of us, the outside world, the world of other people, their expectations, their judgments, their chaotic energy was coded as a threat. So we built a fortress inside our own minds, a beautiful, intricate, and profoundly lonely fortress. Pause. Notice what that just revealed in your body. A tightness in the chest, a memory flickering at the edge of your thoughts. You've felt this before, haven't you? That deep, instinctual pull away from the crowd. It's not arbitrary, it's a learned response. A survival strategy that worked. And now we must thank it for its service and gently, so gently begin to open the gates. Let me tell you about Alex, who learned his lesson at the age of 7, coming home bursting with a story, talking a mile a minute, only to be met by his father's weary, dismissive hand, a wave that said, "Your noise is an inconvenience." And so Alex learned. His words, his excitement, his very energy was a burden, and he carried that lesson into every classroom. Every party, every first date, his voice becoming quieter each year, until he was mostly just a whisper to himself. His vibrant inner world sealed behind a wall of perceived inconvenience. But here's the truth. Your introversion as it manifests today is likely not a genetic sentence, but a cultivated garden, a series of walls built brick by brick, by the well-intentioned or wounded hands of your caregivers, who were themselves living out their own stories, their own fears, and they taught you, directly and indirectly, that visibility is risk, that expression leads to pain, that the self is safest when it is hidden. And your brilliant adaptive mind said, "Okay, I have the solution. I will just stay hidden. I will make my world so small that nothing can ever hurt me again." And it worked, didn't it? It kept you safe from immediate rejection, from the sharp words of childhood, but now as an adult, that same fortress has become your prison. And the sentence is a quiet, persistent loneliness, a feeling of being misunderstood, of having so much to give but no way to let it out, a scream trapped in a glass jar. You feel it making sense already. The pieces are starting to connect. The why behind the quiet, the reason social interactions feel like a performance for which you never received the script. because the original audience, your parents, taught you that your authentic performance was not welcome, or was too much, or was not enough. And so you learned to watch, to analyze, to retreat, to become the quiet observer of a life you're meant to be living. Let's go deeper into the very architecture of the mind, because the pattern isn't just a habit, it's a neural pathway, a deeply grooved riverbed in your brain, where the water of your thoughts automatically flows. The pathway that says, see people, feel anxious, retreat, feel relief. And that relief, that sweet temporary relief, is the reward that reinforces the entire cycle, making it stronger every single time. A loop of avoidance that feels like sanity, but is actually just fear wearing a very convincing mask. What no one tells you is that this isn't a life sentence. This pathway is not set in stone. The brain is plastic, it is malleable. It yearns for new directions, but it needs a gentle, consistent guide to carve a new trail. And that guide is you. The adult you, the one who is listening to this now. The one who is finally ready to take the chisel and begin the work. Pause and ask yourself this now. Where did you learn that being quiet was safer than being seen? Just let the memory surface. Don't judge it, just observe it. See the child you were, trying to navigate a world that felt too loud, too demanding, too critical. And give that child a little nod, a recognition that they were doing their best with the tools they had. Now let's meet our second story, Anya, whose mother was a vortex of anxiety. A woman for whom the world was a terrifying place of potential disaster. And every time Anya wanted to go out, to explore, to have a sleepover, her mother's face would contort with worry. Her hands would wring and she would say, "Oh, but is it safe? What if something happens? I'd just feel better if you stayed home with me." And love, for Anya, became synonymous with staying small, with not causing worry, with making herself invisible to keep her mother's heart rate calm. And so she became a ghost in her own life, polite, quiet, and dying inside, her social muscles atrophying from disuse, because love meant not leaving the house. You see, the mechanism is insidious. It's not always about loud trauma or overt abuse. Sometimes it's the silence that screams, the overprotection that feels like love but functions as a cage. The constant, subtle messaging that the world is not safe and you are not capable of handling it. So you internalize that message, and your introversion becomes a self-imposed quarantine, a way of staying in the only place you were ever told was secure, even if that place is now a prison of one. But here is the turning point. The moment we stop analyzing the cage and start looking for the key, because the key is not in blaming your parents. They were children once too, carrying their own wounds. The key is in taking radical responsibility for your own rewiring, for acknowledging the story without being enslaved by it, for becoming the parent you needed. The one who says it's okay to be seen. Your voice matters, your presence is a gift, and I will stand with you as you learn to believe it. You're starting to see it now. The pattern isn't you, it's just a pattern, a piece of software installed in your hardware. And you have the admin password. You have the ability to run a new program, to install an update called Conscious Choice. And it starts with our first weapon, the weapon of awareness, because you cannot change what you cannot see. And now you are beginning to see with stunning, sometimes painful, clarity. So let's pick up weapon 1. Mindful recognition. This is your foundation, your bedrock. The act of becoming a compassionate spy in your own mind, watching the patterns without judgment, simply seeing the machine as it operates. Step 1. Recognize the trigger, which means the next time you feel that familiar pull to retreat, that social anxiety rising, you stop, you take a single breath, and you name it. You say, there it is, the retreat impulse. It has been triggered by this party, this conversation, this request to speak up in a meeting. You simply label it. You shine the light of your awareness on it. And in that light, it loses a little of its power. It becomes a thing you are observing, not a thing you are. Step 2. Reframe the story, because the story your mind is telling you in that moment is an old, recorded message. It's saying, you're going to be judged. You're going to be a burden. You're going to say the wrong thing. It's safer to leave. And your job is to gently, firmly talk back to that story, to say, that is an old fear, a childhood fear. It is not the present reality. In this moment I am safe, I am an adult, and I can handle discomfort. You reframe the narrative from one of certain danger to one of manageable challenge. Step 3. Replace the pattern. And this doesn't have to be a giant leap. It's a micro action. If the pattern is to immediately leave a gathering, you replace it with, I will stay for 5 more minutes and speak to one person. If the pattern is to stay silent, you replace it with, I will ask one question. If the pattern is to decline the invitation, you replace it with, I will go for 20 minutes, and I have permission to leave after that. You break the monolithic social event into a tiny, manageable brick of behavior, and you build your new confidence one brick at a time. Pause. Feel the power in that, the shift from being a passenger to being the pilot. You've felt this cycle control you for so long. But now you have the first tools to gently take the wheel. It's small, it's subtle, but this is how empires of new behavior are built. Not in a day, but in 1,000 conscious moments. Let's go deeper still, because the body keeps the score. Your introversion isn't just a mental state, it's a physiological one. A state of a nervous system that is stuck in a defensive mode, in what we might call a dorsal vagal state, or a sympathetic freeze, a kind of low-level shutdown that feels like heaviness. Lethargy, brain fog, the body's way of saying, I cannot fight, I cannot flee, so I will collapse and hide. And this is the legacy of those early environments, a body that learned to hide. This brings us to weapon 2, somatic reclamation. The art of reclaiming your body from the grip of that old fear, of teaching your nervous system a new language of safety. Because you can think positive thoughts all day, but if your body is still braced for impact, it will win every time. The body is the battlefield, and we must become gentle generals of our own flesh and blood. Step 1. Recognize the trigger in the body. This is where you become a cartographer of your own sensations. You notice, where do you feel the retreat? Is it a sinking in the stomach, a tightening in the throat, a numbness in the hands, a shallowness of breath? You just notice it, you map it, you say, my personal brand of anxiety shows up as a coldness in my chest and a desire to make myself very small. You don't try to change it yet. You just become exquisitely aware of its signature. Step 2. Reframe the sensation, because your mind will interpret that sinking feeling as I am in danger. I must leave. And you learn to reframe it to say, this is just energy. This is just an old memory trapped in my tissues. This is my body trying to protect me. Thank you, body. But I am safe now. You change the relationship from one of fear to one of curiosity. You befriend the sensation, as strange as that sounds. Step 3. Replace the physiological state. And this is where you actively intervene with a body-based practice. You use your breath, the most powerful tool you have. You take a slow, deep breath in for 4 counts. You hold it for 4, and you exhale slowly for 6 counts. And you do this 3 times, and you watch the physiology shift. Or you place a hand on your heart and another on your belly, and you feel the warmth of your own touch. You ground yourself by feeling your feet on the floor. You look around the room and name 5 things you can see. You actively, physically, pull your body out of the shutdown state and into the present moment, where there is no actual tiger, only the ghost of one. You feel it making sense already. The mind and body are one system. And to change the mind's patterns, we must also change the body's habits. We must teach the flesh that it is safe to be here, safe to be seen, safe to occupy space. Now let me tell you about Ben, our 3rd story, whose father was a man of few words, a man who expressed love through providing, but never through play, never through conversation. And Ben, craving connection, would try to share his interests, his drawings, his stories, and would be met with a blank, uninterested stare, a nod, a return to the newspaper. And Ben learned a devastating lesson. His inner world was boring. It was not worthy of attention, and so he stopped sharing it. He built a vault inside himself and locked all his treasures away. And by the time he was an adult, he had forgotten he even had treasures. He just felt empty, quiet, assuming he had nothing to say, because the most important person in his world had never listened. But here's the truth. Your voice, your ideas, your unique perspective, they were never the problem. The receiver was broken. The antenna was bent. And now you have the power to become your own most interested audience and to find new receivers in the world who are tuned to your frequency. This brings us to the heart of the matter, the core of the your parents made you an introvert psychology fix, which is the internal working model, the blueprint of relationships you formed, the belief that you are fundamentally alone, that others are fundamentally uninterested or dangerous, and that connection is more trouble than it's worth. A blueprint that runs in the background of every interaction, a silent film of isolation playing on the walls of your mind. Weapon 3 is the rewriting of this blueprint. It's called cognitive reconstruction, and it's the deliberate, methodical work of challenging and changing the core beliefs that fuel your retreat, the sentences you tell yourself about yourself and the world. Step 1. Recognize the core belief. These are the silent, global statements that feel like absolute truth. Statements like, I am boring, I am a burden, people don't like me, I have nothing valuable to contribute. It's better if I just stay out of the way. You have to catch these thoughts in the act. You have to drag them out of the shadows and into the light of your conscious mind. Step 2. Reframe the belief with evidence. You become a scientist studying the theory of you, and you look for all the evidence that contradicts the belief. If the belief is "I am boring," you reframe it by listing moments you made someone laugh, an interest you have that is fascinating, a conversation that went well. You collect data that proves the old belief is outdated and inaccurate. You build a case for your own interest. Step 3. Replace the belief with a new empowering mantra, a sentence that feels a little bit true and that you can aspire to. You write it down, you say it to yourself, you wear it like a new garment. Sentences like, "My presence is a calm gift. I have interesting thoughts to share. I am allowed to take up space. Connection is possible for me." You repeat this new sentence until the neural pathway for it begins to form, until it starts to feel more true than the old painful one. Pause and ask yourself this now. What is the one core sentence about yourself that has been running your life? Write it down in your mind, and then right next to it, write a new sentence. One that is just 1 degree truer, 1 degree kinder. Feel the slight shift, the crack of light under the door. This is how you end. Your parents made you an introvert pattern tonight. Not with a giant explosion, but with a quiet, consistent redirection of the stream of your thoughts, away from the old riverbed and towards a new, more fertile valley. Let's go deeper into the final weapon, the one that brings it all together, because awareness, body work, and cognitive reframing are powerful, but they need to be lived. They need to be embodied in real time, in the messy, beautiful, unpredictable world of other people. And that is weapon 4, graduated exposure. The art of courageously and systematically proving to yourself that the old story is a lie, not in one giant terrifying leap, but in a series of small, manageable steps that build your evidence-based confidence. Step 1. Recognize the hierarchy of fear. You make a list, a literal list, of social situations that trigger your retreat impulse, from the mildly uncomfortable to the utterly terrifying. Maybe at the bottom is saying hello to a cashier. In the middle is asking a coworker about their weekend. And at the top is going to a party alone and initiating a conversation. You map your fear landscape. Step 2. Reframe the exposure as an experiment, not a test. You are not going to pass or fail. You are a scientist gathering data. You are going to try the easiest thing on your list, and your only goal is to observe what happens, to notice that you survived, that the world did not end, that perhaps even it was slightly okay. You reframe it from a performance to a curiosity-driven mission. Step 3. Replace the avoidance with planned incremental action. You start at the bottom of your list and you do that thing, deliberately with your new tools of breath and mantra, and you do it again and again until it loses its charge, until it becomes almost easy. And then you move to the next item on the list. You climb your own personal mountain of fear, one gentle, deliberate step at a time, celebrating every single step, no matter how small. You're starting to see it now, the entire architecture of your change. It's not a mystery, it's a process, a gentle unfolding, a reparenting of your own soul. You are giving yourself the lessons in safety, in voice, invisibility that you should have received all those years ago. You are becoming your own source of validation, your own safe harbor. And from that place of internal security, the need to retreat, the exhausting vigilance, it begins to soften, it begins to melt. And what emerges is not a raging extrovert, but a grounded, centered, choiceful introvert. Someone who can enjoy solitude without being imprisoned by it, who can engage with the world from a place of abundance, not depletion, who can connect deeply because they are no longer afraid of being seen. This is integration. This is freedom. This is the moment you realize the fortress door was never locked from the outside. It was only ever locked from within, and you have always held the key of awareness, the key of breath, the key of a reframed thought, the key of a small brave action, and now you are finally gently turning it. You are swinging the door open, not to a storm but to a dawn. A quiet, peaceful dawn where you can finally step out and breathe the free air, belonging to yourself, at home in the world, your quiet nature no longer a shield, but a gift, a depth, a calm center in a noisy world, and you realize you were never broken. You were only waiting for this moment, this understanding, this gentle command to your own spirit to finally fully come home.